Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today I have the sudden urge to make myself a big, beautiful tablecloth with a yellow sunflower and a blue background. And they're all going to be made with these tiny little wedges. So I'm going to be starting with as many yellows, sort of oranges that I can. And for the center of the sunflower, we need some kind of a brown so that it duplicates the seeds of the sunflower. Sunflowers are a lot of fun to make. We take these little wedges and we sew them together until we get that shape. There's many different sizes we can make, but this particular one I've designed to work with a 6-inch strip of fabric. If you have a 10-degree ruler, you're able to use that. If not, we can make a template. To make that template, we do need 6 inches and then draw a line down the center. So we have 6 inches and 2 straight areas. On one point, we need to make this 1 inch, and this is going to be 2 inches. So I need a total of 2 inches, so 1 and 1 inch. And then on the top, I need 1 inch, so I'll do a 1/2 inch on each side. Now I'm just going to join that 1/2 inch to the inch and do that to both sides. So this is now our wedge shape. And those are the shapes that we need to cut to make these little wedges. If you have that 10-degree ruler, it will fit right there on the end. If you don't have the ruler, we're going to be able to take this and tape it onto the back of any ruler. And tape it so it's along that one edge. We don't need to worry about this edge, or even that top. We just want one edge perfectly straight. So I've turned my ruler into a template. I will have a cutting side, and this is going to be a line-up side. So I'm going to start with a 6-inch wide piece of fabric, and I've cut that the width of the fabric. And I'm going to use that top piece and line it up along the straight edge. So both that top and the bottom should sit straight along that edge. I will be cutting off that selvage, so I have left myself some room. So my ruler is on an angle, but if you look, both those edges are right straight along that edge. And I'm going to be able to cut right along that first edge of the ruler. So I do have that first angle that I need. I will need to cut that second edge so that I make it that pie shape. And for that first one, it's really easy if you just turn it over and turn that ruler over. So I'm lining up that edge to with that first cut. Now I can cut that second. I now have my first cut, and it's exactly the way it should be. So my first cut was here. My next cut, I'm going to take that ruler and flip it. This edge will follow that edge. And I can see right through that ruler. These edges still line up and cut. So I now have that second piece. Take that ruler, flip it, line up that inside. So we will always have the fabric straight along those 3 edges, which means we get to cut along that one edge. If you're using the 10-degree ruler, we'll be able to match up 1, 2, and 3 edges, cut, and then take that and turn it this way to cut the next one. So this ruler, we're turning this way. Our template, we're flipping. And cut all of your pieces out. Now if you have 2-inch strips, we can do it that way too. I do have a strip that's 2 inches, so I need to cut 6-inch segments. Once I have that 6-inch piece, I'll be able to line up those 2 edges. And you can see I'm going to need to cut on both sides. So these 2 short pieces line up. I'm going to cut that first piece, and then from there, turn this over, line it up, and cut that second piece. So if we're doing long strips, it's this piece that's going to get flipped, not the ruler. So there are 3 different ways we can cut these little yellow pieces. You'll get approximately 26 of these wedges from that 6-inch strip of fabric. If you're using a 2-inch strip of fabric, you do have a little bit more waste, and you'll get approximately 6 to 7 from those strips. I now have a nice big pile of these little wedges. And when you're done cutting all of your wedges, be sure to remove that paper. Now your ruler's good as new. I do like to chain piece these little areas, but I'm going to make my stitches smaller at about a 2. So with my pile right here in front of me, I'm just going to take right sides, and this is the larger 2-inch side, fold it in half, and I'm going to stitch from that open piece right to that fold. I am using that 1/4 inch and that small stitch. Pick up the next one, fold that in half, slide it over. Make sure I do have a couple of stitches in between. And stitch. I will be able to do that whole pile, one right after another. One other thing that I do like to do as I'm putting them through, I will fold them, and then right here at the top, I'll just give a little thumb press. That little press just right up at the top, it's going to help me for pressing later. Once we finish sewing all of those tops, we're going to need to fold that top in to make little points. Put your finger in that opening. We want to open that seam. So we're going to be able to hold that open. Fold this little point down. We have that little point folded down. And put your finger as close as you can to that end. Now pull that entire thing over. So we will have that nice point. If you need to, you can put in a point turner. Just get in there, just give a little push to make that point come nice and pointy. So we have that nice point on both sides. When we were sewing this, we did finger press that, and you can see that little finger press right here. That's going to be the halfway mark that this seam is going to line up to. So we're going to line it up to that little finger fold and press. So we're going to have all of our little wedges where that seam line is going to match that center line. Now we get to sew these together, and there is a trick to putting them together. And that little trick is going to work right here at the sewing machine. We need to sew these wedges together. So we're going to pick up 2 and match those top pieces. It's important that 2 folds are going to match each other. So we really want that area right there matching. That point is not so important, and the bottom is not important. Match up that edge and match up that one edge that you're going to stitch on. Take that to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew it starting from this edge. We're going to sew up a 1/4 inch. When we come to this little folded edge, we're going to stitch back and take it off the machine. Your end might not match up, and that's fine because that's going to be covered afterwards. So we're just going to stitch up using that 1/4 inch. And those 2 folds are matching right up. And I'm going to stitch to the edge and then back stitch. And you don't have to come off the fabric, just get really, really close and then back stitch. If your machine can cut it, take advantage of that. By doing that little back stitch, number 1, we have secured this area But we've also made the thread ends come to here. So there's no worry about little threads poking up as we put this all together. And when we open it up, those two folds fit perfect in that center. You cannot see if those points are off a little bit. And since we're going to cover the bottom, that's not important. These seams are going to be pressed flat, and you will not see those tops poking out from that side. Now we do need to sew all of these wedges together, and I like to do them in groups of 4. So I'm going to have 4 units that I'm going to keep adding to as I go along. And because I'm using all sorts of yellows, I will just change up those colors randomly. So I have a total of 4 units. Those seams are all pressed flat. So now I'm going to be able to put those together. Sew those 2 units together, and then sew the larger piece together. I used a total of 39 wedges to get that beautiful sunflower. We now need to put a center in. That center circle will be about 7.5 inches. So I'm going to take time and I'm going to stitch this center on first before I put it on my background fabric. My sunflower is all in one piece now, and that center piece also helps stabilize it. Now if you find that the sunflower does not lay flat, before you put this piece on, you can adjust some of these seams. Take 1 or 2 and do a thicker seam allowance, or you might just need to press it and stretch it out a little bit. Once this is laying flat, we're going to be able to put this on our background fabric. And I'm going to be using this blue background with this little bit of a gold in it. That will help duplicate some of the gold in that sunflower. I'm going to put a pin on each one of those points. Now I'm going to go to the machine and just follow the outside and top stitch all of this down. I'm going to continue using those small stitches and just go all the way around. Once my sunflower has been stitched on, I do want to trim off this back fabric. The reason is I can see that shadow of the blue fabric in my yellow. I want that yellow nice and clean. So I'm going to trim off just this little back piece. Be careful that you don't cut through your flower. With that extra piece off the back, it definitely will lay a lot flatter and will be easier to quilt. And I don't see that blue shadow around the flowers. I've done a 23-inch square, but you can do whatever you'd like. Now I'm going to square this up and put 1 border on it, and that will be done. The sunflower is now done. We can get that quilted, and it'd make a nice table topper. To quilt it, I did a free motion sunflower. I came in, back out, and then did all of these petals. And then worked into another circle and more petals. So the entire thing does have these little swirls and those petals. And for the back, I did have a really nice sunflower print. My big sunflower is now done. It equals 26 inches. Now, of course, the background fabric size could be changed. You could add more borders or make more blocks. I do hope you join me today and make yourself a nice big sunflower. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have a newsletter, all under Sew Very Easy. I'll put a link in the description for you. Thanks again. Bye for now.